And good evening, everyone. We have a big hour ahead, including the latest on the mess in Arizona, with new warnings from election observers and Tucker Carlson's absurd new comments about COVID vaccines that show that he doesn't know much about science or history. We'll begin the readout tonight with America's existential crisis. Later this month, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer will bring the For the People Act, the Democrats' signature anti-corruption and voting rights reform bill, to the floor for a vote. It can't come soon enough, as Republican-led legislatures across the country have introduced nearly 400 bills that limit voting access, an anti-voting wave that this country has not seen since the end of Reconstruction. In his new cover piece for Mother Jones, Ari Berman writes that much of what we are witnessing is a concerted attempt to end the second Reconstruction, which began after the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965. Much like the post-Reconstruction era, today's Republican Party, the party of white grievance, is rewriting the rules of American democracy to protect conservative white political power from the rising influence of new demographic groups. And unless something is done now, the damage could be irreparable. On Tuesday, President Biden, recognizing the moment and signaling a new phase in the pressure campaign, called out two obstinate members of his own party.
This sacred right is under assault with incredible intensity like I've never seen, with an intensity and aggressiveness that we've not seen in a long, long time. It's simply un-American. I hear all the folks on TV saying, why doesn't Biden get this done? Well, because Biden only has a majority of effectively 4 votes in the House and a tie in the Senate, with 2 members of the Senate who vote more with my Republican friends.
In the face of this 4-alarm fire, one of those unnamed senators, Arizona's Kyrsten Sinema, doubled down on her support for the filibuster. Sinema, calling herself a happy warrior for bipartisanship and speaking like someone who frankly has the luxury of not being personally impacted by these oppressive laws, repeated her refusal to budge on the filibuster.
To those who say we must make a choice between the filibuster and X, I say this is a false choice. The reality is that when you have a system that's not working effectively, and I would think that most would agree that the Senate's not a particularly well-oiled machine, right? The way to fix that is to change your behavior, not to eliminate the rules or change the rules, but to change your behavior.
The other unnamed senator, Joe Manchin of West Virginia, continues to be a fellow Ahab, forever hunting the mythical creature called bipartisanship. He told reporters to keep the faith in this damn Senate, and we'll make it work out. Make it bipartisan. Keep the faith in what? Just last Friday, 35 Senate Republicans came together to kill a bipartisan bill supported by the majority of the American public to create a commission to investigate the most violent attack on our democracy in modern American history. In simpler terms, there will never be 10 Senate Republicans willing to overcome a filibuster because of what their leader told us.
100% of my focus is on standing up to this administration. What we have in the United States Senate is total unity from Susan Collins to Ted Cruz in opposition to what the new Biden administration is trying to do to this country.
Okay, did you hear that? 100%. And that leaves us, frankly, confused as to why Manchin and Sinema care more about the will of the Republican Party than about the will of the American people. Joining me now is Al Franken, former senator from the state of Minnesota and host of the Al Franken podcast, and Christina Greer, associate professor of political science at Fordham University. And, you know, Senator Franken, I have to go to you first because, you know, I've never worked with these people. I don't know these people, but I frankly can't think of an explanation for what Manchin and Sinema are doing unless it is that they actually prefer that Republicans control the process and maybe that Republicans control the Senate, or that they themselves don't even maybe plan to run for re-election and are looking to their next thing, which they think is going to take place in a right-wing Republican-controlled world. They're just preparing themselves basically to be the smoking man on the X-Files and let the other guys win. I don't know another explanation, do you?
I want to read their minds, but this is different. This is an existential threat. This is a threat to our democracy. What the Republicans passed nationwide, but just look at Arizona, where not only are they suppressing votes, which is something they traditionally do to try to get people they don't want to vote. What they're actually doing is trying to give the authority to Republican officials to overturn elections. In Arizona, they've given the authority to determine who won the election. They've changed it from the Secretary of State to the Attorney General in this legislation. And that expires in January of 23 because they don't know who's going to win the Attorney General and who's going to win the Secretary of State. This is different. This is not whether, to cover orthodonty in the ACA. This is democracy. And I would make the case to Joe Manchin, and especially on this bill, because I hear Sinema is for it, but also on the filibuster, obviously, that we either need to get, Joe has said he won't get rid of it. Sinema has said she won't get rid of it. Norm Ornstein and I have been working on a modification that I think would work in stopping this. And I'll let the professor weigh in here so I don't, talk too much.
No, we want you to talk. We want you to talk. I mean, the thing is, Christina Greer, Kyrsten Sinema knows everything that Al Franken just said. Mm-hmm. She understands what's happening in her own state. Right. I can only conclude that she supports what they're doing and wants it to proceed because she says she's on the bill. She's a co-sponsor. That's real convenient to let her show up at black churches on MLK Day so she can cover herself that way. But I cannot conclude other than that what she sees happening that Republicans are doing, she's for it because she's not for changing it. She's not for stopping it. I don't know what else to conclude.
Well, 2 words, Joy, primaries matter, because just as you said, she will be more than happy to show up in particular communities when the primary season comes around to talk about certain legislation that she, mealy-mouthed supported. But on really important questions of our democracy, as Senator Franken has pointed out, she's just been an adversary to the Democratic Party. And we know that there is great ideological diversity within the Democratic Party. We talk about this with Black politics all the time. We are the welcoming tent. There are several shades of blue. We understand that, but we cannot have senators, Democratic senators, who are actively working against the American people. And that is what we're seeing with Sinema and Manchin when they refuse to support their colleagues, their Democratic colleagues, when it comes to really assessing what the filibuster has done and how it prevents, especially with Mitch McConnell and his caucus, how it prevents the American public from moving forward in a real substantive way. The fact that they're voting against the January 6th Commission should be proof enough alone to let us know that these individuals are not interested in the health and wealth and continuation of this American democracy.
Yeah, and Senator Franken, look, apparently the new strategy, you have Vice President Harris is going to be leading the administration efforts. They're putting her on the field. You've got the NAACP preparing to go and, meet with Manchin. They're basically throwing the full African-American coalition at Manchin because right now it's Senator Cory Booker that's out there. It's Reverend Warnock out there meeting with them. They're throwing... I don't see how that moves him. He doesn't need African-American votes to win. It's the 7% black state. Does that work? I don't see how that works, but you tell me if you think differently.
Let me describe what Norm and I have been working on for 12 years now, and we've modified the modification. This is what it would be. Right now, if you look at that vote on the January 6th Commission, they only got 35 to stop it. But they didn't need 35. They didn't need any. They needed 1, I guess. Yeah. They needed someone to show up. But we needed 60. This modification is they have to show up and there have to be 41 votes. They have to keep a filibuster going. But not just that, they have to stay there. And it has to be a talking filibuster. And they have to stay there. And they can stay there a day. They can stay there 2 days. There's 50 of them. 41 have to be there at some point, all day, all night. By my math, each of them would get 5 hours off. You do that for 2 or 3 days, Chuck Grassley gets a little tired of that. Mitch McConnell gets a little tired of that. Plus, the American people get to hear them debate, and they get to hear the Republicans take the pro side on why it should be a crime to give someone a glass of water or give them water in a line. I want to see that debate. I want to have the American people see that debate. And I want to make Jim Inhofe and Mitch McConnell stay there. Believe me, I've been in this body. They don't want to stay there, and they're not going to. And this, before filibusters were people like Strom Thurmond were for the exact opposite reason. They're wrong, bad reasons. This is about our democracy. And if we lose this one, if we allow this to overturn elections, elected Republican officials to overturn election, our democracy goes away. It wouldn't be Hitler. It wouldn't have been Tojo. Wouldn't have been the Confederacy. It'd be Mitch McConnell who ended our democracy.
Well, and Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema. Sorry, I can't not fault them.